everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy and Profitable Play. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering a question that I get pretty often, but most recently I got this question on my Facebook business page from Ian. So thank you so much, Ian, for this question. We're going to talk about liability waivers and the ins and outs of all of those. So hang tight. But before we get started with today's video, I just wanted to quickly remind you that if you have any questions or if you have a topic that you would like me to cover, please tell me, whether it's in a comment below this video or whether it's in my Instagram DMs. My Instagram is linked in the video description right below this video. You just have to hit the little expand button on YouTube. But I want to know what you need answers to because I get it. It can be really overwhelming. I've been teaching indoor playground ownership since 2018, or honestly 2017 if you count my time one-on-one consulting. But that means I have hundreds of YouTube videos, hundreds of podcast episodes, hundreds of blogs, articles. I have free classes, PDF downloads. I have tons of paid premium fast track resources. It's just a lot. And sometimes when you're looking for the answer to one specific question, it can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. And I understand that. So I organize all of my free content in a really no-brainer way for my Play Cafe Academy and Playmaker Society members, but I don't want to gatekeep that. I want to give that same gift to you. And I want to answer the questions that you have in kind of a more succinct style. So a lot of times these little answers and bits of nugget or these little nuggets of information or knowledge are buried in other videos. And I want to make sure that you're not searching for a needle in a haystack. I want to answer your questions in this easy to digest way. So again, comment below this video what you want me to talk about or any questions you have. Send me a message on Instagram. I would love to answer your questions. But back to Ian's question. Ian messaged my Facebook business page and he said, "Hey Michelle, quick question. In your experience, do liability waivers hold up in court? And, depending on your answer, why do business owners have them?" And my answer to this, and first of all, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just my experience and what I've learned from my own counsel. Typically, no, liability waivers will not hold up in court. So when a customer walks in your indoor playground door and you ask them to sign away, basically all their rights of holding you as a business owner or as a business, an LLC, liable for any injuries, any events that happen under your roof, you're basically asking them to hold you innocent of any wrongdoing, any incidents that happen. And you just can't legally ask a customer to do that as a business owner. So a lot of times, and this is kind of how it was explained to me by a very smart lawyer, she basically said, and again, this was echoed as well by all of the insurance companies I've ever worked with, is that liability waivers typically act as a deterrent for lawsuits. So for example, let's hypothetically say I bring my son Ben to an indoor playground, I sign my waiver, I agree that I'm never going to sue and that, I'm holding the business itself innocent of any injuries or incidents that happen, right? I signed the paper, I did all that. Let's say Benjamin jams his finger and, he runs into a wall or something like that. I don't know. That sounds like something my son Ben would do. So let's say it's pretty bruised. We go to urgent care. It's not broken. We just get it in a splint. As a parent, knowing that I signed my rights away, or that's what I think at the time, many times with small, non-serious injuries like a finger sprain, a lot of times parents will just not even want to bother, right? They don't want to hire a lawyer to fight that waiver. They don't want to incur all of those legal costs and that big hassle of going up against the big insurance companies or honestly, even your small business. So a lot of times parents just assume that, oh, I signed my rights away. I have no legal repercussions. Or maybe they know that the waiver won't hold up in court, but because their medical costs or, pain and suffering were so negligible, and I'm not trying to minimize any injuries or, emotional distress or anything like that. But a lot of times parents do that cost benefit analysis, right? My urgent care copay was $50. I'm not going to hire a $600 an hour lawyer to try to get my $50 recouped or whatever. I can't think of the the word right now. But anyways, most parents just assume that they sign their rights away. And even if they know better, it's usually just not worth the fight. So it's really meant to deter kind of that sue happy customer who kind of comes in looking for a problem, who comes in looking for a slip and fall opportunity or something like that. And quite honestly, it works a lot of the time as a deterrent. And for this reason, most insurance companies will require you to have a waiver. Because again, even if it doesn't hold up fully in court, it may hold up partially. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I just want to be realistic with you real quick. If somebody gets seriously injured in your facility, you will be liable. And what I mean by liable, because I don't want you to panic, is that that customer is entitled to some sort of compensation. Now, the big difference for you as a business owner is, was this because of negligence, or was this just a freak accident? Was it just something that happened? Was it something that was completely out of your control? Because these are two completely different scenarios. And what I mean by, is it something that could have been prevented, or was it something that you were at fault, or was it due to negligence? What I mean by that is, was there a nail sticking out that should have been repaired? Was there a floorboard that somebody tripped on? Was there a spill that nobody had cleaned up and there was no wet floor sign out? Was something in disrepair that should have been fixed? Something like that. Was it something that could have been prevented? Given, I forget what the legal term is. Again, this is not legal advice, but essentially, if something was wrong in your business that should have been fixed or should have been addressed, that is a big problem for you as a business owner. And your insurance typically will not pay out, or they'll pay out a lot less in that regard, which means that you can be held liable as a business owner. So if you are an LLC, a lot of people assume that, oh, I'm an LLC, that removes my liability as a business owner. But that just isn't true. And again, seek your own legal advice. But in my experience, I have worked with many, many lawyers on this, and I've asked a lot of really hard questions because I'm very risk averse and I want to know all the worst case scenarios that could possibly come up as a business owner. And again, how it was explained to me was that if you are a member of your LLC, you can be held liable for negligence or fraud or anything like that that happens in your business. Meaning, if your insurance says, no, we're not paying out, but a court orders that this customer is entitled to $1 million in compensation, yes, they can garnish your wages. Yes, they can put a lien on your house, meaning when you go to sell your house, the bank or the insurance company, whoever is entitled to that money, in this case, I guess it would be the customer, they would take the money from the sale of that house. Or, there's all different ways that they can go about kind of recouping that money. Generally, if you're not a millionaire, they're never going to see that full settlement amount. But just know, being an LLC does not remove all personal liability from you as an LLC member. So if the injury or incident was due to negligence, that's a big, big problem for you. Now, if it was just a freak accident, if two kids ran into each other and one of them got a concussion, or one time somebody at my facility fell on their head, and even though there was a mat there, he had jumped really far, which is against our rules and on our waiver, which I'm going to come back to. But they fell, hit their head, had a seizure, had a lot of medical bills. Luckily, this mother ended up not bringing a lawsuit against us or trying to, get compensated or anything like that. She was very understanding. Luckily, she had very good health insurance that covered most of it. But in that situation, that would typically result in an insurance payout. So we would not be held liable as an LLC, as me personally as a business owner, because it was not a result of my negligence or my wrongdoing or my team's wrongdoing. Because as a member of an LLC or whatever your business is organized as, you're responsible for the people that work under you. So even if one of your employees throws hot coffee onto a customer in a fit of rage, that's a big problem for you as a member of your LLC. And yes, they could face criminal charges, but civilly, when it comes to a lawsuit and recouping for financial distress and medical bills, that's going to fall on you as the business owner. So that's a really good reason to make sure all of the repairs are happening in your space very, very quickly. And if it's a big repair or a big safety risk, close until you can fix it. Make sure you train your team on safety measures, those wet floor signs. Make sure you have all required signs posted. So for the Heimlich maneuver in New York State, our health department required that we have the instructions for CPR and the Heimlich maneuver readily available wherever people eat. We are required to have a first aid kit. So make sure you know your requirements. And if you don't know, ask your insurance agent. A lot of times they're going to be, wanting to go above and beyond, helping you keep your customers safe because it's a win for you, it's a win for them. So generally, I recommend either going to a lawyer or your insurance agent if you're not quite sure of what you need to train employees on, what signs you need to have, what you need to have on hand, what you need to work into your build out. But just keep in mind that injuries due to neglect and injuries due to just accidents that happen are two completely different scenarios. Now, you might think that, oh, a freak accident with an insurance payout, that's not really going to affect me as a business owner, right? That's why we have insurance to cover situations like this. But unfortunately, again, in my experience, I've worked with several owners who this happened to. Usually what happens is, yes, the insurances pay out, but immediately your rates skyrocket. So maybe you were paying $2,000 a year for your insurance premium before. If they had to award, let's say, $250,000 to one of your customers, they're going to immediately reassess your risk as a client, and you could be now asked to pay $40,000 a year. And yes, there are like rules about what they can increase, what they can't, how big of an increase, but that all comes down to your contract. So make sure you read whatever you sign when it comes to your insurance. Or alternatively, they might just drop you. They might refuse to renew your policy. And if you have multiple incidences, other insurance companies unfortunately can see this, and you might be deemed too much of a risk for that company to take on. So just know that both situations are not great. One, due to neglect, is obviously worse than the other one, but just know there are not great implications regardless of what happens if there's an injury or anything like that. And I do have a YouTube video specifically on preparing your indoor playgrounds for emergencies. So again, this little tidbit of information was kind of buried in that video. So if you want the full video, I will link it below or in the video description. But just know your waiver typically won't hold up in court because we as business owners cannot legally ask customers to hold us innocent of anything that happens under our roof, at least not completely innocent. So again, the second part of his question was, well, why do we even have waivers if they don't hold up in court? And number one, in my experience, it doesn't reduce the cost of your insurance because most insurances, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, they're going to require you to have a liability waiver of some sort if you're in the play industry. Now, this is whether you're an indoor playground or a soft play rental business. I even recommend general business liability insurance for balloon artists or event planners because you just never know what could go wrong. Because we're not just talking about injuries here, we're also talking about other things that can happen. So if you're a balloon artist and somebody paid you a $1,000 non-refundable deposit and there was a weather event that day and you weren't able to set up, your waiver and your insurance is going to help you kind of sort that out in a more black and white manner. It's going to help you avoid a lot of legal costs. So any business you own, I highly recommend liability insurance. But as somebody in the play-based business industry, it becomes even more crucial to make sure that you're covered, make sure you have the right premiums, make sure you have the right coverage. So again, this is all very important, and it's going to be very specific to what equipment you have, your space, all that good stuff. So I kind of talked about an injury and being held up in court, but now I mentioned that I wanted to talk about why we have waivers anyways, if they typically don't hold up. One, of course, yes, it's a deterrent. But number two, it's also a great opportunity to remind your customers of your rules, your policies, and ask them to agree to them. Because even if we can't be held, even if we as business owners can't ask our customers to hold us entirely innocent, there are still things that we can make sure customers understand. as a patron of our business. So here's an example. Let's say on our waiver, we said, hey, I understand that I am not to bring in any food in the play area. And I understand that I am to use the hand washing station prior to entering the play area because let's say we're a nut-free facility. What if a child has an allergic reaction to nuts because one of the moms didn't listen and brought in a bag of almonds to your indoor playground and was just chomping away at them on the play area floor and was completely disregarding your rules, and maybe your staff didn't catch it quite in time. And if you've ever watched my video about the time I had to fire a customer, you'll know that this actually happened to me. So real life, this is not hypothetical. This could absolutely happen to you. It happened to me multiple times. Not in the event, thank God, that a child had an allergic reaction, but I had so many parents, one parent in particular, really ignore our rules and was constantly munching on nuts in the play area when we were a nut-free facility. And this caused us huge costs. We had to shut down, clean, sanitize, all that stuff. So parents don't listen. They just don't. Anyways, before we go off the rails here, let's talk about this. So if that child had an allergic reaction and, they sue or something like that, heaven forbid, again, if you had that in your waiver and that customer completely disregarded it, and if your staff acted in good faith, meaning they were monitoring the play area, but stuff like this can happen in a split second, right? If you were doing your due diligence and the staff just missed it in that one crucial moment, there's a really good chance that you will not be held liable or your insurance will pay out instead of holding you negligent as a business owner. And it's all going to come down to the wording that you have in your waiver and how you enforced it. And honestly, it's just a way to make your life easier as a business owner. So kind of moving away from the worst case scenario, we made sure that people understand in our waiver that they can't have parties in the cafe during open hours. We made them sign and check that they understood that they had to take their shoes off. We made sure that they understood, again, all of our rules. You must accompany your child. You must accompany your child to the bathroom. You must report any broken or any toys that are unsafe because, again, we can only watch so much. You must bring them to the desk if you see them. No food in the play area. There are so many rules and policies that, yes, you might have a board. Yes, you might verbally say them, but by having customers sign off on them in a waiver format is a really great way to further reinforce them. And Ian was kind of saying in our little message conversation that he was recently at a place that had all of these rules and they did make him sign the waiver, but they weren't enforcing them. So again, you can't rely just on your waiver. You can't rely just on your sign. It has to be a multifaceted, a multi-medium approach, if you will, to make sure that your customers know, understand, and comply with your rules. And by having your customers sign a waiver and actually check boxes like, I understand this, I understand this, I understand this, that also makes it so much easier on your staff to enforce the rules. So often in Playmaker Society, we talk about how we often hire young people who are shy or who have never confronted an adult before. A lot of them can be really timid and wary of enforcing your rules, and they might just let stuff slide as a result, and that could result rather in injuries, unsafe conditions for your other customers, and it could just result in your other customers having a really bad experience because these rules aren't being enforced, exactly like what Ian said. So by giving your by giving your staff this tool, this waiver that customers are required to sign, it gives them a really easy way to say, hey, this is our rule. Look, it's on the wall. Look, it's here on this counter. And look, you signed it when you came here. So I'm going to ask you to please abide by what you signed on this waiver. And usually that's a really effective, kind of non-confrontational way for your younger team members or any team members who are just non-confrontational to handle these types of situations. The more black and white and clear you make it, the easier you're going to have when trying to enforce these rules. And the more people are going to respect the rules. So even though waivers don't typically hold up in court, I do still highly, highly, highly recommend them, even if your insurance doesn't recommend them, even if you're a mobile soft play company, because it's a great way to reiterate and remind people of your rules and hold your customers and staff accountable when you're actually getting to the point of enforcing them. So our waiver started at 1 page, then it was 2 pages, then it was 3 pages. And this is also a great place to add a sickness policy for all of those places that are operating post pandemic and things like that. So make sure that you're really utilizing your waiver to its full advantage, and make sure you ask people to, yes, of course, all of the legalities, but also enforce and restate your policies here. All right, I hope that answered your question, Ian. And if you are wondering the same thing, I hope it answered your question. I hope I didn't make you too nervous, because luckily, especially when it comes to smaller footprint, um, more imaginative play spaces, these serious accidents are very far and few between. But you do need to be prepared. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect your business. You need to protect your family and your assets. So don't skip on this. Don't skimp on this step. Hire a lawyer, talk to your insurance agent, and make sure you have everything in your waiver that needs to be included and everything on hand in your facility to really make sure that you are minimizing your losses and minimizing any negative repercussions from any major incidents. All right, have a great day. Again, if you have any questions or topics that you'd like me to cover, I would be happy to. There's really nothing that's off the table. I really like to pride myself that I'm an open book. So whether it's about business, whether it's about life, people ask me like, how has this business affected my marriage? How has it affected my kids? What was I most afraid of? What would I tell myself looking back? Right? There are so many questions that I get that I would love to answer. So please, please, please send me an Instagram message, comment below this video. I really look forward to hearing from you. All right, have a great day. I'll see you soon.